When it comes to calls and call routing, almost anything you can imagine is possible, but in order to achieve that, you need to understand the order of operations and how everything is put together. So I'm going to explain that in this video so that you can set up your phones however you like. If something isn't working properly after you set it up, I would come back and review this video and make sure you don't have something out of order. That's usually the most common problem. And I would always test your phone system after you set it up to make sure it's working properly. In my opinion, this is one of the easiest things to mix up and get confused. I say that because I've messed it up a bunch, only to come back and realize like, oh yeah, I just did it wrong. But let's start with your team, right? So if you're in your account and you go to settings, you'll have My Staff here, and this is all of your users. Whatever phone number you put here for the user is the phone number the system will use when it's doing call routing. So for instance, this Jill Fake, right? I'm going to put in a phone number here. I'm just going to make one up. I would put a 555, but the system is smart enough to know if you enter a fake number. But that's how the system knows like what the phone number is. So this is the basic contact information. And then another important thing when it comes to the phone is the call and voicemail settings for each user. So I'll go ahead and open this up, and we're going to come back to this when I go over the order of operations. So I'm going to skip this part right now. But you see you've got different kinds of calls that can come in, and you can label how you'd like those calls to come in. So my phone number is going to be, it's just going to ring their cell phone like a normal phone call. Mobile app is, they have to have the mobile app installed on their phone, meaning they went to the Google Play or Apple store, they downloaded the app and it's on their phone, and also that they've allowed their phone to receive notifications from the app. Then the call will ring through the mobile app. And then the last one is the web app, which basically you have to be logged in like you are here. And then you'll notice when you get a phone call, this will drop down, letting you know you're getting a phone call, and it'll actually be ringing through the web app. You'll notice for right now on these right here, you can only select one or the other. That may change over time, but right now that's what it is. And then for the forward calls, you can actually select all three or just two, so it can actually do both. So for instance, my office, I always have it just ring to the web app. So that way, when they're not working, right, it's like 3 a.m. in the morning and they're not working, they're not going to get a phone call and they're not going to get their mobile app ringing. It's only when they're actually logged in working is when they're going to take and make phone calls. Or like a sales rep, I'm going to have them have the mobile app or even this phone number, but I choose the mobile app and just make sure they have it installed. All right, so we're just going to go through these order of operations right here, and these are in chronological order. So what this means is if you basically set up an automation to take calls, that will take precedence over everything, or that will trump everything. Meaning like if you set up all these other things, none of it'll matter. If you've set up an IVR, it's just going to do what that says and none of this other stuff matters. However, if you don't have an automation set up for that number, then it'll go to step 2. And it's going to go to this rule, which is go to the user who has that number assigned to them in the user settings. So that's right here in the user settings. If I assign a phone number here, I only have one in this dummy account, but I could have like 10, and I selected this number. As long as I don't have an automation set up for that phone number, it'll just go to that person. But if that number is not assigned to anybody here, then it's going to go to the next step. So real quick, I want to cover the automations very briefly, just so you understand what it is. I'll have another video that goes into detail about how you can set up IVR automations and get really detailed with, I call them call trees. But I just want to give you a very basic example here. So if you go into automations, you can create a new automation. I like to label them what they are. So I'll do a sequential calling. All right, so I'm going to click on this trigger and type IVR for my search bar. And you'll see there's only one trigger, which is an incoming call or start IVR. So it's going to look like this, and it's going to say in the phone number. If you had multiple phone numbers here, you could select multiple, not just one. Since I only have one, that's the only one I'm going to select. There's other filters you could add if you wanted to, but most of the time you're not going to. And this is just saying, hey, whenever someone calls this number, do this. So one of the most popular is connect to call. So I'm just going to pick Jill Fake. If I wanted to, I could have it ring to all 3 people at the same time. And the way that works is when a phone call comes in, all 3 of these people are going to receive the call. So all their phones will ring at the exact same time. Whoever answers the phone call first will get the call. And then the other 2 people, their phone will just stop ringing. So that's how that works when you select multiple. But I could say, hey, I want it to go to Jill first. And then under advanced settings, I can set up some other stuff. So I'm going to say, yeah, I do want it to record the call. And then this timeout is how long, how many seconds is it going to ring until it does another action. Now, where you want to be careful here is a lot of phone carriers, it's going to ring, and if nobody answers after a certain amount of time, it's going to go to voicemail, which the system will detect as an answered call, so it won't go to the next step. So you want to play around with the seconds. Usually I find 18 or 17 is a good amount. So I'm going to put 18 here. So it's going to ring for 18 seconds. And then after that 18 seconds, it'll do whatever the next step is. So I can just put another connect call. I'm going to go copy, action, paste there. I'm going to open this up, but instead of Jill this time, I want it to ring to Shane. So I'll press save. So now it's going to, when someone calls, it'll first ring them, then I'll ring the next person. Because if I can get this person to answer, that's best, but this is my backup choice. So like, let's say that you had a phone answering service. Well, we can go copy, paste, and you can see this one is going to ring for 18 seconds, go to the next step. But here, I actually will just put the max, 600. Doesn't really matter. A phone answering service, like a third party that just answers the call for you and takes a message instead of going to voicemail, should answer, but just to be safe, I'll put 600 seconds. And I'm going to, instead of putting a user's phone number, I'm going to put an outside phone number. So a custom phone number that's not in the system, press save, and now it'll do that. And you can label these. So you could say call Jill, save, call Shane, call phone answering service. So that gives you a basic idea of how you can do this. There is one thing that I want you to know about is if you tell it you want the assigned user to answer, but there is no assigned user, it'll just end the call. So what I mean by that is, let's go back to Jill. We can also say, hey, I want it to ring Jill and whoever the assigned user is for that contact. If that contact does not have an assigned user, it's actually going to end the call here. So the way you'd want to set this up is you want to have an if else beforehand. And we want to say, does contact have an assigned user, question mark, and I'm going to say contact details assigned user is empty. So if the assigned user is empty, that means no, it does not have an assigned user. And then the opposite of that, or everything else, will be yes. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go copy all actions from here, paste it here. But in this case, I'm going to say ring Jill and the assigned user, save. So now if it rings and a call comes in and the contact is not assigned to a user, like it's just a random number, it'll come down this pipe. And since there is no assigned user here, the phone call won't get ended. But on this side, it will ring both Jill and the assigned user and then follow the rest of the steps. So I could just press save and then I'd publish this if I want it to happen. All right, enough about IVR, but IVR will trump everything. If you set up a phone number here, meaning you have a phone number right there, then that phone number is going to do this and not listen to anything else you have set up. So we covered step 2, which is under your staff, you go down to the call voicemail settings. If you put a number in here, then whenever anybody calls that number, it's going to ring this user. So Jill will get the call. But if we don't have an automation and we just leave this blank for all of our users, then I'll go to the third step, which is it's going to go to the user who is assigned to the contact. So if you go to any of your contacts, this is where the assigned user is. So it can be unassigned. It might look like that. It's not assigned to anybody. But if this contact is assigned to a user, it's basically saying anytime this phone number calls, it's going to go to whoever the assigned user is, which can change, which is nice because it can be dynamic. For instance, for my company, and I'm not saying this is the right way, we're doing an experiment we're just trying to make the best customer experience possible. And I'm really not sure if this is the best experience for the customer. I'm just trying it out for the time being. But essentially, if a number calls and they're not assigned to anybody, it goes to the office. If a number calls and they're assigned to somebody, it'll ring both the assigned user and the office. So that way, if we have an estimate set up with an estimator and that contact calls, the estimator may receive that phone call. And then when it moves in production, the production manager can receive the phone call. And you could even take it farther if you have like employee painters and you want them to receive the phone call, you can do that as well. And the thinking is the client just deals with one phone number, but they're connected to the person that is most relevant to them based on where they are in the customer life cycle. You'll notice too, I have this text message in there for you that basically if you're going to use something like that, you can use this to explain it, where it's like, welcome to your company. Our smartphone system ensures you're always a text or call away from the help you need. First time caller, you'll reach the office. Waiting an estimate, your call/text connects to the estimator. For active projects, you're straight through to the production manager. So this kind of primes them, because what we've noticed is the estimator will text them saying, hey, I'm going to be there tomorrow. And then the next text they get from that number is the production manager. And it's like, hi, I'm production manager. And it's like, wait, I thought this number was the estimator's phone number. So we kind of let them know like, hey, you're going to deal with one phone number, but different people are going to interact with you through it. Which again, I don't know if that's the best system. But the point is the phone routing can be very dynamic and you could use it to your advantage. But enough about that. This is the third order of operation. It's going to go to who is assigned to the contact. Now there is another place in the phone numbers where it could also ring somebody else at the same time. So let me show you what that is. In your phone number settings, we can go edit. Down here at the bottom, you can see ring incoming call to all users. So if you turn this on, you can select up to 7 users and you can pick different users so that if this phone number, which I labeled example number, gets a phone call, it'll ring these people as long as I turn this on. And that's that third order of operation. So the fourth order of operation is it's going to go to the forwarding number in the number settings. So if we come back to this number here and I go edit, I'm going to turn this off, get rid of these. If I put a phone number here, like whatever number I put, it will ring to that phone number every time it's called. And then the last operation is it's going to go to the company's business phone. So if I go to my business profile, if I put in a phone number right here, it'll ring to that phone number. So that's the order of operations, and you can use that hierarchy to kind of design and how you want it set up. Now there are a couple places where you can set up voicemail, and if you want to have the voicemail recorded within the system rather than your actual phone, you can set that up right here. You have to upload an MP3 or WAV file of the voicemail, or you can just let your phone handle that. It's up to you. If you want to use something dynamic to where sometimes it'll actually go to the business phone number, like this one, which is that last order of operation, you can also record a different voicemail here for like your business voicemail. So you could have like Jill and then your business or whatever. So if it's just you, and let's say that you've got your cell phone and you got your business phone number, this is how I would personally set it up. When you set yourself up in here, I would put your cell phone number for your phone number. That way, if they call one of the phone numbers you have and you're the assigned user, it rings to you. Then under calls and voicemail, I would put the example number there so that whenever somebody calls the number you bought in the CRM, it'll ring to you and go through the CRM and be recorded. And then the last step, if it's just you, is your actual business phone. I would have that number always forward to the CRM number. And what that means is if somebody, say, finds you online and they call your business phone, it's going to go to this phone number here and be routed through the CRM where it'll track the call. You'll know when it happened. If you're recording it, there'll be a recording there for you. And then when you make calls, I would just make them through the CRM. So that way it'll go through this number. It will be recorded, show up. If you want to text on this number, it'll be in there. And then if somebody calls you back on this number, it'll actually go to your cell phone number. So that way your business phone, you don't really need it anymore. All the calls that come in there will get forwarded to this number, and then you'll use this number for text message, calling out, and then also receiving calls. The only thing you might be concerned about is if you get a text on your original business phone, which at least for us, we weren't getting any text, but we did set up to where there's a bunch of apps you can download to where basically if you get a text, it'll forward it to your email. So that way you're just 100% sure. And then if you actually don't have a business line that's separate from your personal line, this is probably the best time to make that switch. I would just get a phone number and start using that as your business phone number, especially to handle all the spam calls you get on business lines. It's a lot. And it's because you're legally allowed to call businesses different than people. But with the CRM, you can label those phone numbers as spam to try to reduce the amount of calls you get. And if you ever leave the CRM, you can port this number out. It is a Twilio number, and you could get it out of the system so you can own that number. It's not tied to where you have to use it for this CRM. All right, there's a couple other things I wanted to cover. For right now, if you use the IVR system, only the phone number shows up on the caller ID when somebody calls you, not the contact name. So if you have a contact in there that's named Jim, when they call you, it doesn't show Jim's name, it shows his phone number for right now. That'll be addressed in the future, but unfortunately that's something that you're giving up with IVR, where all the other methods, it'll actually show Jim's name. I do have a workaround for that if it's super important to you. You do have to purchase another phone number in order for it to work. But if that's something you want, email me and I'll show you the workaround. The last thing is, if you're using this feature, ring incoming call to multiple users, if you have an issue with that, which I've only found it's when you have more than one user here, and basically what happens is one of the users, the phone will like ring and then stop, ring and then stop. The solution for that until this bug is fixed is just come into your business profile and delete the number here, and that'll fix it. It's a known bug that is being worked on, but if you notice that issue, that's the fix for it. The good news is you won't need a phone number here because that's the last order of operation if you're using this ring incoming call to all users, but the system just gets confused in some cases depending on the situation. So that's the fix for that. All right, so that is the phone call routing and all the different options and possibilities you have. Like I said, if you experience any kind of issues, I would just review. Sometimes you forget like, oh yeah, I still have that user assigned to that number. That's why it's not going to the office, it's going to them. Let me just delete the number and then boom, it's working.